Mod.
Hello. Today is Wednesday, March 12th. Welcome to episode 425 of Fault Lines, the National Security Institute's podcast that gets you quickly up to speed 3 times a week on the national security and foreign policy debates shaking up America. We've got the quad today. I'm NSI Advisory Board member Lester Munson. I'm joined by NSI Deputy Executive Director Martha Miller, NSI Senior Fellow Morgan Vigna, and NSI Fellow Jessica Jones. Let's talk about the recent deal in Saudi Arabia between the U.S. and Ukraine, an agreement on a ceasefire in the war between Russia and Ukraine, resulting from Russia's invasion of Ukraine 3 years ago. There is not a ceasefire yet. This is pending agreement from Russia, which is the big question. But let's review quickly here. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, NSC advisor Mike Waltz went to Saudi Arabia. They were hosted by Mohammed bin Salman, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. They spoke with Ukrainian delegation led by Andriy Yermak, who is the key advisor to President Zelensky. They've basically agreed on a 30-day ceasefire, or Ukraine has agreed to the U.S.'s proposal of a 30-day ceasefire. This is different than Ukraine's proposal of a couple of days ago, which was for there to be a ceasefire just in the air and at sea, not on land. So Ukraine has agreed to American terms. Notably, Ukraine and the United States have not signed this mineral deal. Although everyone seems to agree to it, it has not been finalized. That's kind of an interesting component of all of this. Fighting continues in Ukraine. Ukraine launched a big drone attack on Moscow within the last 36 or 48 hours. Russia, of course, being aggressive on the ground. A lot of fighting around Kursk, which is the area inside Russia that that Ukraine has taken over in an effort to kind of trade some things in a negotiation. So, a lot going on. The onus now seems to be on Russia, on Vladimir Putin. Will he accept Donald Trump's proposal of a 30-day ceasefire in Ukraine as a platform to getting to a larger deal? Martha Miller, please discuss for our listeners and viewers this particular arrangement and whether you think Vladimir Putin will agree to this.
Thanks, Les. I think, what's interesting about this is that, the administration's been really tough on Ukraine. And I think we can all agree that they've been more than tough on Zelensky. The question, I think, in everyone's mind is, what will Putin do? I think those of us who have been Russia watchers for a long time would probably all agree that it is very unlikely that Putin will agree to a ceasefire. I think it's also very interesting. I am wondering, what will the administration do? Will they truly put the screws on Russia? Will they be as tough on Russia as they have been on Ukraine? This is actually a moment of truth for the Trump administration to show us where they stand with regard to Russia.
Morgan Vigna, let's get your views on this, because I think Martha is correct. Our president, Donald Trump, has been playing this game with Russia for many years. He's been talking up Vladimir Putin. He's been building up his reputation. He's been trying to restore him to decent status in the international community in an effort for exactly something like this, to get him to do the peace deal in Ukraine. Will it work?
Well, I mean, to be fair, I mean, Russia invaded Ukraine during Biden, and so I think it's kind of hard to see. It doesn't really make sense to me that why Trump would try to restore Putin to, some sort of internationally accepted, political figure. Like, I personally don't know what he stands to gain by that. What he does stand to gain, though, is being the broker of peace in Europe. And I think he would very much like to be able to sort of wear that mantle of peace broker and have bragging rights to that. I will say that Ukraine is really being forced to the table here. Ukraine has been very dependent on the United States for security support, security assistance for international, or excuse me, intelligence sharing. And right now that's under review. That's being, I think the Trump administration has been pretty clear that, we are reconsidering what we provide Ukraine. And so Ukraine has been really sort of forced to come to the table and accept this deal, which may or may not be advantageous to them. I think it's too early to tell as to whether or not this is actually going to, succeed. As you know, we still see fighting in Ukraine. We still see, Ukrainian attacks on Moscow. And Russia hasn't agreed to this deal yet, right? So I think it's sort of to be determined at this point whether or not Russia is going to agree to it, and whether or not they're actually going to buy it if they do agree to it.
Vinya, I don't like your answer. We're going to come
Shocker.
back. I'm coming back to you. In fact, we're coming back with a lightning round here at the end. But before that, Jones, same question for you. President Trump has been building up Vladimir Putin for a long time. It seems to me for exactly this purpose, to get him to do the peace deal that otherwise he might not do in Ukraine. Will it work?
I'm not sure he's been building him up for the peace deal. He's been building up long before Russia invaded Ukraine. So that would be a very long game if that indeed is what's happening. I think Putin's in a really hard spot. I think both of him and President Trump are usually the toughest guys in the room. They have the most leverage and they do what they want. And now President Trump, Zelensky is finally getting in the game, right? He read the room totally wrong, as we've discussed when he went to the White House, but he now sees what he has to do to be at the table, to at least temporarily be in the Trump administration's good graces, right? For right now. Again, whether that's a good move or not, we'll see. But I think Putin's sitting there going, okay, how much of a wild card is President Trump? How much, how do I play this well? Because I think it's hard to predict. And even if he doesn't agree to a ceasefire, how does Putin throw Ukraine under the bus and blame them for that? And what does Donald Trump do then? If he does accept this ceasefire, how does he play it at the actual negotiation table so that Russia comes out on top anyways? So I think even if the ceasefire is agreed to, there's a long way to go between now and actually guns down. And there's a big difference between, we talk about the mineral deal, which hasn't been signed yet, but by all purposes looks like it will, between, U.S. kind of economic security and economic interests and long-term European security, which is what Europeans in Ukraine want. That's a big delta. And so whether we actually see the long-term European security interests being protected at the end of a negotiation round is, I think, we're not able to answer that right now.
Okay, we're gonna go to lightning round. This yes or no answer to this question. We'll start with Martha, and then we'll do Morgan, and then Jess. Will Putin agree to Donald Trump's 30-day ceasefire proposal in Ukraine or not? Yes or no? Martha.
Yes to ceasefire, no to an actual deal.
Okay, that's not what I'm asking. Morgan, yes or no on the ceasefire?
I don't like your question, Les.
Yeah, I know. That's why I'm asking it.
You're asking, will Putin agree to the current deal that Ukraine agreed to?
Correct. Yes or no?
No.
Jones.
How quickly can he renege and it still counts as a yes, is my question.
Wait, just give us.
Yes, he'll take it.
Agree.
I have to disagree with that.
The answer is no. Morgan is correct. Putin will not agree. This will be confussed and confused and play out way longer than Donald Trump wanted. It'll be very aggravating for our president, and it's going to be fascinating to see how he deals with it. So I predict a lot of consternation and trouble ahead. Okay, that's a wrap. Thanks so much to Kelly Crowley, Claude Jennings, and the NSI staff for their help in producing today's episode. Join us again on Friday, March 14th. For another episode of Fault Lines, the National Security Institute's podcast that gets you smart fast on the national security and foreign policy debate shaking up America. Fault Lines is now on YouTube. So check out our channel for a video of today's episode. If you like what you heard or saw, please be sure to rate, review, and subscribe.